Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. This is IMAX Sports and Our Football video, and today I'm going over my AFC West predictions for the 2023 to 2024 NFL season. I'm going to be going over every single game of the season for the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Raiders. And I will be putting predictions for their record also on the screen. These are tentative record predictions. My final record predictions will be in my playoff and Super Bowl prediction video right at the beginning of the year. But for right now, I'm just picking every single game and seeing which games I think each of the teams are going to win. Starting off, we have the Kansas City Chiefs with the 3 seed. I have the Chiefs going 12-5. I have them tied with the Bills, who I also have going 12-5 and losing a tiebreaker. I have them going 4-2 in the division and 7-5 in the conference, with a 7-2 home record, a 5-3 away record, and I have them going 6-4 against winning teams and 6-1 against losing teams. So I have them being fairly balanced, home and away, and against winning and losing teams. I have them winning at home week 1 against the Lions, winning away week 2 against the Jaguars, and winning at home week 3 against the Bears to start off 3-0. The Bears and the Lions games, I think, should be fairly straightforward games. I think that Kansas City, since they've had the same team for a long time, has the advantage at the beginning of the season, especially with home games, so I think that those should be pretty good games for them to win. Jacksonville, I do have upsetting a lot of people. That I think Jacksonville's going to have a great season, but I think that Kansas City, again, is going to be more consistent at the start of the season than Jacksonville will be. Jacksonville's going to be a good team this year, but I think that it might take them a couple weeks to find their stride. So I have Kansas City beating them week 2 away. Week 3, I have them losing to the Jets away. I have the Jets winning at home against Kansas City. This game, I think, is an upset. I think that is a major upset, even though it is a home game for the Jets, which is one of the reasons why I picked it. I do still believe that it's an upset. I think that Kansas City has the better team. I think that Kansas City is going to be better all around, but I think that by week 4, Aaron Rodgers should have found his groove in the offense at least a little bit, and I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to want to prove something in that game, and they're going to beat the Chiefs week 4. I have the Chiefs winning 3 more games in a row, 5, 6, and 7 against the Vikings, the Broncos, and the Chargers. The Vikings game is an away game, but I think that Kansas City would travel well to Minnesota, and I also think that Kansas City's team is just more complete than Minnesota's is. I think the Vikings will take a slight step back this year, and even last year, they didn't have too many games where they beat phenomenal teams. They did beat the Bills, and they had some other good games, but I think that this year, they're probably going to take a slight step back just because they really didn't play well in their playoff game last year. I have them winning week 6 and week 7 at home against the Broncos and the Chargers. I have them splitting with everybody in the division except for the Raiders. So I have them winning at home against the Broncos and Chargers and losing away against the Broncos and Chargers. So week 8, I have them losing away to the Broncos. I think the Broncos are going to be a fairly decent team this year, but obviously last year deters me from making them some godlike team, so I have Kansas City splitting with them this year. I have them beating the Dolphins and the Eagles at home for the next 2 games with the bye week in between. I think the bye week really benefits Kansas City going into the Eagles game, which is why I have them favored. I also have them beating the Dolphins at home. I have them winning 2 away games against the Packers and the Raiders. I think that they're just considerably better than both of those teams, and I really don't see the Raiders beating Kansas City this year. I have them losing at home to Buffalo. I think that Josh Allen's going to break the curse of being owned by Patrick Mahomes, and I think that he's going to come away with a victory in that one. I have them beating the Patriots away, beating the Raiders at home, and then losing their last 2 games of the season. So going into Week 17, the Chiefs are going to be the 1 seed in the AFC, according to my predictions, and then losing the last 2 games of the season, they'll go from 12-3 to 12-5, losing to Cincinnati at home and beating the Chargers away. I think that if they beat the Bengals at home, then they'd get the 1 seed. But I think that that's going to be the main game of the season. Joe Burrow plays Kansas City very well every time they play, so I'm very curious to see how that game goes. That one's mostly a toss-up, but I gave it to the Bengals just because I think that Joe Burrow is going to have the best season of his career this year. Moving on to the Chargers, I have the Chargers at 9-8. I think that 9-8 is a kind of a low prediction for them, but they do have, I believe, the hardest schedule in the league based off of winning percentage of opponents. So I think that it's a fair record to have them at, although I think that 10-7 might be more likely. I have them going 4-2 in their division and 6-6 in the conference. I have them winning 8 of their 9 home games and 1 of their 7 away games. I think that's probably where they'll get the extra game or two. I think it'll probably be closer to 50-50, but I guess that their home games were really easy and their away games were really hard. I have them going 5-5 against winning teams and 4-3 against losing teams. So again, I think that mostly they had the easy teams at home and the hard teams away. I have them winning week 1 at home against Miami. I think that the home field advantage gives them a slight edge over the Dolphins. I also think that the Chargers team is a little bit more established because of Tua's injury last year, so I think that the Chargers should have a good week 1. I have them losing week 2 and week 3 to the Titans and the Vikings. I think that they'll most likely win one of those games, but just picking the games straight up, I think that the Titans and Vikings are both most likely to win at home. I think that both of those teams can have explosive offenses and can have good defensive performances, so I think that the home games will help them a lot. But I think that the Chargers could very well take home one of those games, which would bump them up to 10-7. I have them winning one more game, going 2-2 into the bye week against the Raiders, winning at home. After the bye week, I have them winning at home against the Cowboys. That game is mostly a toss-up, but I have them. I gave them the advantage because it's a home game and because I think that Justin Herbert's going to have a couple of really good games against strong quarterbacks and strong teams this year. I think that this will be a potential breakout year for him, and they could potentially do well in the playoffs if they make it. So I have them beating the Cowboys week 6 at home. Week 7, I have them losing to Kansas City away. Again, I have them splitting. Week 8, I have them beating the Bears at home. I think that this should be a fairly straightforward game. It's a fairly easy opponent for them, and it's a home game. I have them week 9 losing to the Jets in New York. Again, I think the Jets are going to be a fairly strong team, so if you're playing in New York, it's going to be a tough game. I think that the Chargers obviously could win this game. It probably goes in the category with the Titans and Vikings where they'll win at least one of them, probably 2. But just picking the games, I'm picking the Jets. Week 10, I have the Chargers beating the Lions at home. I think that the Lions are going to be a strong team, but I think that the home field advantage is going to be significant enough for the Chargers to win. These are both very explosive offenses, and they don't have the best defenses in the world, and I think that in a shootout, I would pick Justin Herbert over Jared Goff most times. I have them losing to the Packers in Green Bay. I think that this is mostly an upset and kind of a wild pick, but I do think that the Packers are going to have some upsets this year. I think that they'll be a bad team that has a lot of good games, and I think that the Packers could be one of those games that they play very well in. The Chargers could be a game that the Packers play very well in. Add that to the list of away games that the Chargers could potentially win. Moving on to the Ravens. The next 3, we have the Ravens, Patriots, and Broncos. I have them winning 2 of the next 3 games. I think that whether they win 1 home game and 1 away game and they lose the other one, or they win 2 home games and they lose the away game, I think the Chargers will win 2 of these 3 games. I think that they're slightly better than the Patriots. They're slightly better than the Broncos, and they are slightly worse than the Ravens. So I think it's more than likely they'll win 2 of these 3 games. Which ones they'll win, I'm not really sure. So I'm just kind of picking the home team. I think that the Ravens, I think that they match up poorly against the Patriots because they've just played poorly against us the last couple of times. They've all been close games, but they should be Chargers wins, and they just haven't found a way to do it. Week 15, I have them beating the Raiders in Vegas. I think that they should be able to beat the Raiders twice. I have them losing to Buffalo at home, and then the last 2 weeks I have them splitting with the Broncos and the Chiefs. So, as I've been saying, I think most of their home games are pretty straightforward. I think that they might probably go 7-2 at home, maybe 6-3, and they might go like 3-5 away. So I think that 10-7 or 11-6 are probably more likely records, but I just picked the game straight up. Broncos, I have them going 8-9, that's the 10 seed. I have them finishing 3-3 in their division and 6-6 in the conference with a 7-2 home record and a 1-7 away record. Again, very similar to the Chargers. I'm just picking the games. I think that the Broncos could finish 9-8, potentially 10-7. I'm really not sure what to think about them, but I think that with the addition of Sean Payton, their offense could actually be decent. I have them 3-7 against winning teams and 5-2 against losing teams. Unlike the Chargers, I have them mostly just beating on bad teams. I have them winning the first 2 games of the season against the Raiders and the Washington Commanders at home. I think that these are going to be 2 fairly straightforward home games for them. I think that they'll be more prepared than the Raiders for the start of the season. And then I don't think Washington will have a massive answer on offense for the Broncos defense. Week 3, I have them losing to the Dolphins. In Week 4, I have them losing to the Bears. I think the Bears could potentially be a wild card team that plays good against good teams and plays poorly against bad teams. Just a very up and down team. I just think that they could potentially match up well against the Broncos if their defense is playing well. The Broncos don't have the most explosive offense in the world, so if the Bears defense can play decent, then I think that their offense could have an explosive enough game to beat them. The Dolphins game, I think that the Dolphins should be able to win in Miami. I don't think that the Broncos defense will be able to hold back the Dolphins offense if they're on a run. And I think that will just be a shootout and the Broncos won't be able to keep up. Week 5, I have them beating the Jets at home. I think this game is a toss-up. I think the Jets could very well win it, but I'm giving it to the Broncos as the home team just because both of these teams have very strong defenses, and I think that with the home crowd in Denver, with the strong defense, it'll be hard for the Jets to score a lot of points. And I think Denver should be able to outscore them in a low-scoring game. Week 6, I have them losing in Kansas City, splitting with them on the season. And then Week 7 and 8, I have them winning 2 games in a row against the Packers and the Chiefs going into the bye. Going into the bye, I have them 5-3. And I have them finishing off the season 3-6, which surprisingly enough, I would say that they're more likely to have a better start to the season than an end to the season just because of the coaching situation, but you never know. Although I'm just strictly picking the games, I do believe their second half of the season will most likely be stronger. I have them losing to the Bills Week 10 and the Vikings Week 11. I just think that those two teams would very significantly outscore them, and I don't think they'd be able to keep up offensively. Week 12, I have them losing to the Browns in Cleveland as well. I think the Browns are going to be strongest around Week 10 through 15. I think that they're going to have a slow start to the season, and then once their playoff hopes are off of the table, they're not going to play as well either. But so I think that Week 10 through 15 will probably be their strongest part of the season, and they'll have a good win against the Broncos in that one. Week 13, I have them beating the Texans in Houston. That should be a straightforward game. And then the end of the season is mostly based off of which team has the better offense. I think that the Chargers and the Lions offenses are very consistent, especially in home games. And I think that they'll split with the Chargers, and then the Lions game, the Lions, I think, should be able to keep the pressure on them enough to win. The Chargers defense isn't exceptionally good, so I think that would probably be like a 43-40 game. But I think that Jared Goff would end up winning that shootout. Week 16 and 17, I have them winning 2 home games, beating the Patriots and splitting with the Chargers. I think the Patriots could very well win that game. I think that the Patriots will either beat the Broncos or the Chargers, but I don't think they'll beat both. That being said, I have the Broncos winning and the Chargers losing simply because I think the Broncos match up better. The Patriots match up well against the Chargers, but against other defensive teams, sometimes it can be a tough. Usually the Patriots do well against other defensive teams, but I think that the Broncos could have a good offensive game. And finally, Week 18, I have the Raiders beating them at home. I think that it'll be a tough game for the Raiders, but I think that they should be able to win. Last but certainly not least, I have the Raiders at 5-12 at the 15 seed. Do I think 5-12 is realistic? No. Do I think the Raiders are going to be better than 1-7 away? Yes. Do I think they'll be better than 1-5 in the division? Maybe not. But they'll definitely be better than 3-9 in the conference. I have them finishing 0-9 against winning teams and 5-3 against losing teams, mostly because they didn't have that impressive of a season last year, and that was with Derek Carr, who's been on the team for however many years in a row. Now they have their questionable coaching situation with Jimmy Garoppolo, a system quarterback that's been with the 49ers for a number of years. If Jimmy Garoppolo has this phenomenal season, and he starts slinging the ball, then I think that the Raiders could be a very good team. But if they try and use him as a system quarterback like he played in San Francisco, I don't think the Raiders' defense is strong enough or consistent enough to support that. That being said, I think that they'll probably finish 6-11 or 7-10. But picking the game straight up, I have them going 5-12. I have them losing to the Broncos Week 1, splitting with them on the season. in an away game against Denver. I think Denver, again, will be more prepared for the season, and they'll lose that one. I have them losing week 2 and week 4 as well against the Chargers and Bills. The Bills just have a better team, and the Chargers, again, the beginning of the season, I think that the Bills and Chargers will just be more prepared than the Raiders. I have them beating the Steelers week 3 because I think that both of these teams have quarterback question marks that are going to be developing throughout the year. I think that the Raiders could develop faster just because Jimmy Garoppolo is a more experienced quarterback than Kenny Pickett, and I think that the home field advantage also helps them in this situation. I do have them beating the Packers week 5. Again, similarly to the Steelers, I just think that Jimmy Garoppolo's experience will help him acclimate better than Jordan Love to the starting role on a team. I think that the home field advantage also obviously helps, and they'll be 2 and 3 going into the Patriots game. I have the Patriots beating them week 6 in Vegas. I think that we're going to want revenge on them from that stupid game last year. I think that the Patriots just overall have a slightly better team, and I think that Mac Jones could have a very strong game against Jimmy Garoppolo. I have them losing 2 more in a row to make it 3 in a row against the Bears and the Lions. The Bears game, I think that the Raiders should be able to win, but I'm picking the Bears just because the Bears play well in Soldier Field, and if Justin Fields has a good season, then I think that he'll be better than Garoppolo. I also think that the Bears defense got better in the offseason, and they'll probably be closer to their 2021 defense than their 2022 defense. If that's accurate, then they'll beat them defensively, and then they'll have more points in the end of the game. The Lions game should be a shootout, and I think the Lions will just demolish them in a shootout. I have them beating the Giants week 9, which, contrary to the Bears game, I think could very well flip. I think that they could very well lose to the Giants away and beat the Bears. Lose to the Giants at home and beat the Bears away. But for right now, I'm picking the home teams. I have them losing away week 10 to the Jets. I think the Jets team is just significantly better, and they wouldn't be able to beat them. Especially this late in the season once Aaron Rodgers has had time to acclimate. Week 11 again with the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins just have a better team, and same thing with week 12 in Kansas City. The second half of the back half of the season after the bye week, I have them going 2 and 3, which is respectable. After finishing 3 and 9 in the first half, I have them going 2 and 3 in the second half, improving a little bit with the last 2 games. I have them losing to the Vikings, the Chargers, and the Chiefs 3 weeks in a row, 2 away games and a home game. I think that it's more than likely that between week 10 and week 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those 6 weeks, I think the Raiders could win 2 games, possibly 3, but I think 2 is more likely. That would bring them up to about 7 and 10, which I think is a more realistic record for them, but I'm strictly picking the games. So I think that those weeks, each of those teams would beat the Raiders in a vacuum, but out of those 6 games, I think that the Raiders could pull a win out in 2 of them. And then the last 2 weeks of the season have them beating the Colts and the Broncos. The Colts game, especially if Jonathan Taylor isn't on the team, should be a pretty straightforward win for them. And the Broncos game being a home game, I think that they will split. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will continue doing the series until I finish all the divisions, and then I will do my playoff and Super Bowl predictions. So, stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Peace.